There's a substance inside a beehive that scientists have found regenerates memory cells in the brain. Not supports, not may help. Regenerates. And it's not some rare, impossible to find compound locked away in a lab somewhere. It's something beekeepers have been harvesting for centuries. It's sitting on health store shelves right now, mislabeled in most people's minds as nothing more than an overpriced energy supplement. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what that substance is, exactly why it works at a cellular level, and 4 other foods sitting in plain sight in ordinary kitchens that scientists have connected to memory, brain cell repair, and slowing down the exact kind of decline that makes people forget names, forget where they put their keys, forget conversations they had yesterday. Some of these are going to genuinely surprise you. One of them is probably already in your kitchen right now, and you had no idea what it was actually doing for your brain. Another one might be the most expensive spice on earth, and it's being tested in memory clinics. And at the very end of this video, all 5 of these are going to connect into one single system, not 5 random tips, one mechanism. Stick around for that because it's the part almost nobody explains. Let's get into it. If you're new here, this is the Aging Research Hub. Every video, we dig through the actual peer-reviewed science on longevity, brain health, and aging. The studies buried in medical journals that never make it into mainstream headlines, so you don't have to read 50 pages to find the one sentence that actually matters to you. Today we're ranking 5 foods connected to brain cell health and memory, going from surprising to genuinely shocking. Number 4 is something almost every health channel on this platform talks about, and almost none of them explain the real reason it works, or the one detail that determines whether it works at all for the bottle sitting in your kitchen right now. We're going in order. Let's start with the one from the beehive. Okay, royal jelly. If you don't already know what this is, here's the fast version. Inside a beehive, worker bees produce a thick, milky white substance. Almost every bee larva gets a small taste of it early on. But one larva, the one destined to become the queen, gets fed nothing but royal jelly for its entire development, start to finish. And the result is almost hard to believe. That one bee ends up living up to 40 times longer than her genetically identical sisters. She grows dramatically larger, her reproductive system fully develops, while the worker bees around her, same DNA, same species, never developed that way at all. For decades, that was just a strange fact about bees. A trivia answer, nothing more than, interesting. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Scientists started asking a very different question. What happens when humans consume it? In a 2025 review published in the journal Frontiers in Nutrition, researchers laid out findings showing that royal jelly carries genuine neuroprotective properties, meaning it actively protects brain cells from damage, and more specifically, that it promotes regeneration of cells in a very particular part of the brain, the hippocampus. If you don't know what the hippocampus is, remember this word because it's going to come up again and again throughout this video. It's your brain's memory center. It's the region responsible for forming new memories and consolidating old ones. And critically, it's the part that shrinks first when age-related memory decline begins. Long before someone is diagnosed with anything serious, this is often the region already quietly losing ground. Royal jelly isn't just protecting that region from further damage. The research suggests it's actively helping regenerate it. Now here's where the stakes get real, because this isn't just theoretical lab talk. That same review pointed to research involving elderly stroke patients, a population at extremely high risk of cognitive decline in the months following their stroke. Researchers found that patients with poor nutritional status going into recovery were significantly more likely to develop cognitive impairment afterward. And royal jelly is now actively being studied as a possible nutritional intervention to help reduce that specific risk during the recovery window when the brain is at its most vulnerable. Let's talk about the actual mechanism, because I promised you this video wouldn't stop at sounds nice. This is the difference between a claim and an explanation. Royal jelly appears to activate something called AMPK. Think of AMPK as an energy switch inside every one of your cells. When it flips on, it fundamentally changes how that cell behaves. And when AMPK gets activated in brain cells specifically, it shuts down 3 separate processes that are actively working against you as you age: chronic inflammation, oxidative stress from free radical damage, and something called apoptotic signaling, which is essentially the biochemical message that tells a cell, your time is up, shut down now. Royal jelly appears to interrupt that message before it fully executes. It's telling vulnerable brain cells, not yet, stay online. There's also early evidence pointing toward increased production of something called BDNF, a protein your brain relies on to grow new neurons and maintain the ones you already have. Lower BDNF levels are strongly associated with memory decline as people age. Higher levels are associated with sharper, more resilient, more durable memory well into later life. So here's what almost nobody knows about royal jelly boiled down. This isn't a vague boosts energy supplement sold next to protein powder. This is a substance being actively studied for its ability to protect and regenerate the exact brain region responsible for memory formation, and it's already being tested in real stroke recovery patients in real hospitals right now. And that's just food number one. It gets more specific from here. Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. What is the very first food your brain was ever biologically optimized to receive? Breast milk. Inside breast milk, there's a compound called uridine. Researchers consider it essential during early brain development, meaning your body specifically prioritized including this compound during the single most critical window of neurological growth a human being will ever go through. Not optional, essential. Now here's the detail that should genuinely stop you for a second. Uridine isn't exclusively found in breast milk. It also shows up in a small, specific handful of everyday foods: nutritional yeast, certain mushrooms, organ meats, and a few vegetables. Nutritional yeast. That's the yellow flaky stuff sold in the shaker jar, usually sitting right next to the protein powders and supplements at the health food store. The stuff people sprinkle on popcorn or pasta because it tastes vaguely cheesy without any actual cheese in it. Most people buying that jar have absolutely no idea it contains a compound your own body once considered so important it put it directly into the first food you consumed as a newborn human being. Early research, and I want to be completely upfront here, this is still early stage science, has explored uridine's role in supporting neurogenesis, which is simply the medical term for the formation of brand new brain cells. In animal studies, uridine supplementation appeared to reduce the decline in neurogenesis that's normally caused by certain neurotoxic stressors. Human clinical data is still catching up to the animal research. That's an honest limitation, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But here's the biological logic that's genuinely hard to ignore. This is a compound your own body already decided was worth prioritizing during the single most important developmental window your brain will ever experience. And right now it's sitting almost completely ignored in a shaker jar in the health food aisle bought by people who think they're just adding a cheesy flavor to their popcorn. That's food number two. And the next one is going to reframe something you've probably heard 1,000 times. You've heard, blueberries are good for your brain more times than you can count. I'm not going to waste another 30 seconds of your life repeating that sentence with zero new information attached to it. Here's what you probably haven't heard. Not all berries are created equal. And real research backs that up in a way that almost never gets explained properly. A study published in the journal Nutrients specifically tested wild Nordic berries. Not standard cultivated grocery store blueberries, but wild varieties like bilberries and lingonberries, the kind that grow low to the ground in Scandinavian forests, on aging test subjects. And the researchers found improvement on two completely separate fronts simultaneously: measurable cognitive improvements and measurable shifts in gut bacteria composition. That second part is the detail almost nobody explains, and it changes the whole story. For years, the working assumption in nutrition science was simple. Berries help your brain because antioxidants circulate directly to brain tissue and neutralize damage there. Straightforward, direct, done. But there's a newer, far less talked about idea gaining traction in neuroscience right now. The theory that a meaningful portion of brain aging is actually regulated indirectly through your gut. Your gut bacteria interact with compounds arriving from the food you eat, and that interaction directly influences inflammation levels that eventually reach your brain through the bloodstream. So when researchers found that wild Nordic berries improved both cognition and gut bacteria composition in the same study on the same subjects, that's not a coincidence sitting in a footnote. That's a genuine clue about the actual pathway at work. The berries may not just be feeding your brain directly through antioxidants. They may be feeding the specific gut bacteria that are in turn protecting your brain from the inside out. So if you've been eating regular blueberries thinking good enough, box checked, you're not wrong exactly. You're just missing the more specific, more potent version of what you're actually going for. Wild, dark, less processed, closer to how the plant grows in nature tends to mean a meaningfully higher concentration of the exact compounds researchers are studying in these trials. That's food number three. And now, here's the one almost every single health channel on this platform talks about, and almost none of them explain correctly. Everyone says olive oil is good for your brain. At this point, that sentence carries basically zero actual information. It's the nutritional equivalent of saying water is wet. So let's actually explain what's happening at the mechanistic level, because the real story here is far more specific and far more interesting than anything you've probably heard repeated 100 times before. There's a compound in real, high quality extra virgin olive oil called oleocanthal. It's actually the exact compound responsible for that sharp, peppery, throat catching sensation you feel when you taste genuinely high quality olive oil straight off a spoon. That burning feeling isn't a flaw or a defect, it's a direct signal that oleocanthal is present in meaningful amounts. In a study published in the journal ACS Chemical Neuroscience back in 2013, researchers led by Dr. Amal Kadumi treated mice with oleocanthal extracted directly from extra virgin olive oil. They were tracking something very specific in the brain: amyloid beta. If that term sounds familiar, it's because amyloid beta is the sticky, toxic protein buildup most closely associated with memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. It physically accumulates between brain cells over years and interferes with normal neural function. Here's exactly what they found. In the mice treated with oleocanthal, the brain's clearance rate of amyloid beta increased significantly, from roughly 62% in untreated control mice up to nearly 80% in the treated group. That's not a small shift. Researchers traced this improvement to oleocanthal boosting specific transport proteins located in the brain's blood vessels. Proteins whose entire biological job is to physically escort waste material out of brain tissue and into the bloodstream, where it can be cleared from the body entirely. But the story doesn't stop there. Follow-up research from that same lab found that oleocanthal-rich olive oil also triggers something called autophagy, essentially your brain cell's internal cleanup crew, a process that clears out damaged material from inside individual cells, not just from the space around them, and it does this through a specific energy sensing pathway. If you were paying close attention earlier in this video, that pathway is AMPK, the exact same one royal jelly activates. Two completely unrelated foods discovered by completely different research teams converging on the exact same internal cellular repair system. Now here's the part almost nobody tells you, and it's the actual reason this ingredient earns a real spot on this list. Instead of getting dismissed as basic, everyone already knows this. This effect is specific to real high phenolic extra virgin olive oil. The refined, lower quality, mass produced olive oil sold in a lot of plastic bottles on standard grocery store shelves has largely had this compound processed and refined out of it. Here's a simple test you can actually do at home. If a bottle of olive oil tastes completely smooth, mild, with absolutely zero peppery bite at the back of your throat, that bite is oleocanthal quite literally announcing its presence. There's a strong chance you're not getting a meaningful amount of the exact compound these researchers studied. So olive oil is good for your brain isn't technically wrong. It's just missing the one specific detail that actually determines whether that sentence is even true for the particular bottle currently sitting in your kitchen cabinet. That's food number 4. Last one connects everything you just heard. Last one on the list. And this is the segment where everything you've heard so far connects into a single picture. Foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and other traditionally fermented vegetables get talked about constantly online, but almost always in the narrow context of gut health, treated as a completely separate topic from brain health entirely. Two different conversations, two different corners of the internet that never seem to intersect. Here's the connection almost nobody makes explicitly. When bacteria living in your gut break down fiber from fermented foods, they produce byproducts called short-chain fatty acids. These compounds travel through what researchers call the gut-brain axis, a direct biochemical communication line running between your digestive system and your brain, and they directly influence inflammation levels inside actual brain tissue. Think back to segment 3 for a second. Remember the wild berries that improved both memory and gut bacteria composition in the same study on the same subjects? This is the exact mechanism connecting those two outcomes together. And remember the AMPK pathway from royal jelly and from olive oil? That internal repair switch inside your cells that shuts down inflammation and cellular decline? Chronic low-grade gut inflammation is one of the precise things that pathway spends its energy fighting against. None of these 5 foods are working in complete isolation from each other. Royal jelly protects and actively regenerates the memory center directly. Nutritional yeast supplies a compound your body once considered essential for brain formation itself from the very beginning of your life. Wild berries feed the specific gut bacteria that help regulate inflammation reaching your brain. Olive oil physically clears out the toxic protein buildup linked to memory loss, while simultaneously switching on your brain's internal cellular cleanup system. And fermented foods keep that entire gut-to-brain communication line healthy enough for all 4 of the others to actually function the way researchers observed in these studies. It's not 5 separate, disconnected tips you're supposed to remember individually. It's one interconnected system. And until this video, almost nobody laid it out for you that way. Quick, honest note before you go, because I'd rather you trust this channel than impress you for 5 extra minutes. Some of this research, especially around royal jelly, uridine, and the newer gut-brain axis findings, is still in relatively early or animal study stages. The olive oil research and the underlying neuroscience behind amyloid clearance are further along, backed by more direct laboratory evidence. Promising doesn't automatically mean fully proven for every single claim in this video. But it does mean this is genuinely where the actual science is heading, often years before it ever shows up in mainstream headlines or morning talk shows. If this video actually taught you something you genuinely never heard before, that's exactly what this channel exists to do. Subscribe, because next time we're going even deeper. The 5 worst everyday habits quietly damaging your brain that almost nobody warns you about. See you in the next one.